All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. My name is Michael Rothenberg. I'm here with Don LeBlanc, and we're going to tell you about a few of our projects from earlier this year, highlighting a few of the different projects, or products, that is. So, Don, you got anything, or you want me to jump right into it?
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome aboard. A few housekeeping items real quick before we get going, Michael. I want to thank everyone for attending today. We have a good audience of about 55 folks, I believe, in attendance. Cassie did have to run out for an emergency, but she may pop in just over vocals to help us out with some of the technology side of it. For folks on the call who have questions, we do want to keep this fairly open-ended, so we're going to try to keep everyone with the ability to chat on, and I would ask you to put your questions in the questions box, and Michael and I will do everything we can to answer them in real time. Today we have a number of different projects we're going to highlight. Michael's going to talk about some high-density polyethylene solutions. We have a solid wall example, and we have a couple of profile wall examples as well. And then I will follow him, and we'll talk about a glass reinforced plastic. I have two projects I believe I'm going to share with you today. So we're very excited to share these opportunities with you and hope that it gets the brain juices flowing. I hope you guys on the West Coast have had your coffee because you're about to see some really cool pictures from Michael. So without further ado, Michael, if you'd like to take it away and get started, I greatly appreciate it. Control of your screen.
Don. Yeah, I got it. All right. So once again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Michael Rothenberg. I'm a territory sales manager for Pipe Reline Solutions. And over the next 5-10 minutes or so, I'm going to tell you guys about the Larimer County and Delta County installations from earlier this year. And before I get into each of those, I'm going to tell you guys a brief overview of the different products that were used. So Snap-Tite and Spiralite. So Snap-Tite meets Astrom 326, which is currently the only standard for relining culverts across the country. It is corrosion, abrasion, chemical, and UV resistant and simple to install. So as I said, two counties, well, Larimer County and Delta County both installed them before, but we're now approaching a dozen different Colorado counties that have self-installed this product in the past. And whenever I talk about HDPE liners and Snap-Tite specifically, I always like to touch on the flow charts just to help with the common misconception that you can't downsize the liner or the pipe size and still at least maintain flow. So with a 36-inch liner, you can go all the way down to a 28-inch liner size and still result in 112% of the flow capacity. And that's most extreme point, an 84-inch CMP can be slip line with a 63-inch OD liner and still result in 102% of the flow. So just in case you have any severe denser deflections or misaligned joints. Aside from the standard round Snap-Tite that comes in sizes 8-inch OD to 63-inch OD, there is a hydrobel option, which is an inlet control device that will improve flow between 15 to 20% in low head level water conditions, and then between 35 to 40% in high head level water conditions. And as an option for all those arch culverts that are out there to maximize flow capacity, they have oval Snap-Tite as well. They have a piece of equipment down in Kingman, Arizona. It'll give the pipe a controlled deflection, and once it's been compressed, they'll insert those wood planks into place that will then stay in place until after the grouting process has been completed. And also fish passages. So this was for a project over in Frisco, Colorado, off the exit for Breckenridge, where they actually used a hydrobel as well. Engineers with CDOT decided they needed fish passages, so we got with them to determine, how tall to make them, how wide in between, so on and so forth. And that will take us to the Larimer County installation. So I'll keep both these case studies nice and simple. Got the problems and obstacles, and then the solution for each of those. So with Larimer County, this was kind of a poster child project for culvert rehab in general, just because there were so many common issues with culverts and all of them needed to be fixed without disturbing the road. So there was a failing 36-inch hose CMP, about 140 feet long. It was collapsing in the middle, had the rust out invert, which was affecting the flow capacity. Was also deeply buried under a busy and fairly essential road. But on top of that, it was a paved road, and about 8 months out of the year, this area was under swampy conditions. So the solution to the 36-inch failing CMP was the 30-inch Snap-Tite. And as far as the collapsing in the middle goes, they decided to put a bullet nose on it, which you can see in the middle left picture. So that 36-inch hose CMP crept down to about 31 inches in the middle, and just to avoid any potential hangups and just generally allow that pipe to maneuver through with ease, they put a chainsaw up to it, bolted the pipe together in the front, and then it was able to duck under. So the rust out invert was rehabilitated with an HDPE pipe, which has that Mannings of 0.009 to help improve flow capacity. And as far as it being deeply buried, that was a non-problem just because it saved so much time and cost for digging and replacing. The busy road had no road closures, you can see in the bottom left picture. But that road was also helping avoid a 3-hour detour to get from Fort Collins to Steamboat. So
Hey, Michael,
yeah.
You mind slowing down a little bit? You're
Oh,
going really fast.
sorry about that.
No, that's
So
okay.
under the, oh, sorry about that, Jim. All right. How do I get this out of the way? We'll just drag it down, I guess. All right. So, yeah, that row was about helped avoid a 3-hour detour to get from Fort Collins to Steamboat. So fairly essential in that sense, as they have traffic upwards of 1,000 cars per day. And with it being swampy conditions, 8 months out of the year, they had to install it quickly and during the winter. So even in negative 10-degree weather, this pipe was slip lined and snapped with ease. We got the video of them snapping it together with just the chains and come-alongs here. All right.
Hey, Michael, while you're on that slide and that video, can you talk a little bit to how you felt was this their first one? You may have already said, and how did you feel their learning curve was after they did the first couple joints?
This was not. So they had been snapping together snap tight for at least 5 years now, as far as back as I can see.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
it was a little bit more of a learning curve in the cold weather because they needed to heat the pipe joints a little bit, but they were only able to do the install. Basically, they weren't going to find out till the morning of. So I had a 2-hour drive to get to the job site. They texted me around 6 a.m. I headed out, and they probably already had, I think, the first 3 snaps done by the time I got there.
Very nice.
So, all right. So that takes us to Spiralite, and this side's going to be nice and easy just because Spiralite, being another HDP liner, shares so many characteristics with Snap-Tite. So it's also corrosion, abrasion, chemical, and UV resistant, has the bell and spigot joint option available, as you can see in the picture, and comes in sizes available up to 144-inch OD with also multiple thicknesses as well, just in case, or depending on how much of a beating you're going to put this pipe through with potentially large boulders going through in Wyoming or something, you may need a bit thicker of a pipe. And that'll take us to the Delta County installation. You can see the job site they were working with there, where they had a failing, at the time of the install, a 78-inch ID CMP that was about 70 feet long, but once again, a rust-out invert. It was deeply buried, as you saw in that picture, with it collapsing more so on the right side, you can notice, and then it was also under a paved road that led to residences. So this was actually for my second culvert inspection, initially back in October of 2019. So we had measured it, and at the smallest point, it was 85 inches. So they ordered the 78-inch Spiralite come January or so, and over the next few months, it had crept down all the way to 78 inches at its smallest. But luckily, HDP being flexible, they were able to push it through with ease with the help of that excavator. But the rust out invert, once again, was rehabilitated with a product that has a Mannings of 0.009. And once again, deeply buried, but they were able to save time and money versus digging and replacing. So the road and bridge director had said that if they wanted to dig and replace the structure, they were going to need a concrete pipe so thick that it cost more than the liner, the grouting, and the bulkhead materials for this entire project in a whole. But the collapsing pipe was structurally reinforced between the pipe and the grouting process, and having not dug up the paved road, they didn't cause their locals to have to take an extensive detour.
Do you know what they use? If you back up a second, do you know what they
Yeah.
used for grouting material on the annulus here?
Both these guys use low density cellular concrete. I am blanking on the pounds per cubic foot. I know the Larimer County folks always stick around 50 pounds per cubic foot.
Okay.
But I'm blanking on these guys.
And did they use gravity? It looks like they have quite a bit of headroom here. Did they use gravity or did they pump it?
They had to pump it just because the slope was a little bit, they basically weren't working with much gravity to help.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'll interject real quick. So for folks who haven't seen us give a presentation, who might not be familiar with annular space fills and HDPE pipes and some of these liners, we often will prefer and suggest in our specifications the very term that Michael used called low density cellular concrete. It is like flowable fill, but ramped up to a whole nother level. In an instance, you can pump this stuff hundreds, if not thousands of feet with great success. It finds voids very well. So not only are you filling the annular space, but you're finding all the voids outside of the hose pipe walls as well to help seal up those embankments to prevent future road deterioration. So That's one of the major reasons why we often will suggest low density cellular concrete, because unlike flowable fill, which traditionally has sand and other stuff in it, it is not super dense. One of the other reasons we use cellular concrete is because it doesn't put a lot of buoyancy or uplift force on our liners. So you greatly reduce the buoyancy and or buckling potential on those liner pipes. So for what it's worth, Michael, I just wanted to add that those few bullet points to your presentation.
Appreciate it, Don. But going forward, we have a couple more exciting projects coming up. Well, one was already done, but they're just waiting on the bulkheads and grouting. Jackson County completed their first ever self-install culvert rehab project with 2 side-by-side oval 42-inch snap-tight liners. And then American West has an 84-inch to 72-inch whalite project with the diffuser coming up. So hope to share those with you guys going forward as well. And Don, with that, I will pass it back to you.
Fantastic, thank you.
You want to make Don the presenter? Yes. All right.
All right. You are seeing my screen now?
1 second, just had X on my presentation. Yep, I got it. I'm on your homepage.
Okay. Does that show up okay, Michael?
Yeah, we're good. Oh,
So
and hang on. I got a couple questions.
That came in about a bullet nose that you might need to refer back to, Michael. Does the bullet nose help reshape the original culvert? You or Dawn can run with that one.
Do you want me to answer, or do you want to? I think I know where he's headed with the question.
Yeah, so real quick, as far as the liner went, it stuck. Well, snap-tight comes in 24-foot and 9-foot standard lengths. They just ordered straight 24 feet for however it mathed out, but they ended up cutting off that excess bit of liner pipe at the end of at the outlet. If Don, that's what you were thinking as well.
I think what this gentleman is asking is it sort of like a jacking or a pipe bursting type application? In this sense, it's not. It is very difficult to pipe burst corrugated metal pipe. That is a technology or a methodology that is often used to basically expand the diameter of an existing pipe. And in this instance, the only reason for the nose cone is often because we want to try to get through tough pinch points. It could be snap tight is by design a push and pull joint. It is a mechanical joint when the bell and spigot are together. So without the need of using any fusion equipment, you have a joint that you can push and pull on. I'm a Frenchman, so I talk with my hands a lot. So your nose cone is really a pulling mechanism, so it allows you to get through some nasty pinch points and or some minor curves in a hose pipe. So I believe that's what that gentleman was asking, but he knows me very well. He's welcome to reach out and ask me on the side if I didn't properly answer your question. So thank you very much for that question. All right, I believe those are the questions for now. I will take some time now to discuss GRP, glass reinforced plastic liners. The particular brand we're talking about today is called Channel Line. There are multiple brands of GRP liners out there in the marketplace. One of the focus points of today's presentation and of Channel Line in general is the fact that we specialize in non-circular, what the industry calls non-circular piping. So pretty self-explanatory. There are a ton of solutions out in the market for circular lining. Prior to GRP and some of these other types of liners out there, there weren't a lot of great solutions for non-circular liners. There were some coatings and some other things that you could do, but nothing that was really self-supporting, direct variable, load rated AASHTO pipe. GRP is now designable and can be substantiated with finite element analysis through design with multiple DOTs and the most stringent. I have a lot of stringent DOTs in my territory. I'm sure, Michael, you run into a few out your way. But there's a lot of entities that want to make sure that they can load rate and or design these to be self-supporting. In other words, once again, no credit taken for strength of the hose pipe and no credits taken for strength of the grout surrounding it. So the grout that we were talking about 5-10 minutes ago is really just a void filler. It is a non-structural material. It is basically taking up the space between the pipe and the existing soils and filling that space. So now you have a full pipe to soil interaction again whereas before it had been washed away by the erosion of the existing pipe. So one of the things we've been working on pretty aggressively is the fact that these GRP pipes were more commonly used, or I should say are more commonly used for the sanitary sewer side of the marketplace. And we are now transitioning that over to the DOT. And up in Canada, we have a couple of provinces up there that are using them for highway culverts underneath their highways up north as well. In fact, I'll show a few pictures here in a little bit of my colleague up in New Brunswick. But one of the great things I like about this is that we can accommodate various shapes. So for example, you know, instead of trying to stick a round pipe or the old adage, trying to put a square peg into a round hole, right? So now we have multiple shape variation capabilities. In other words, if I want to make a pipe arch, I can make a pipe arch like you guys are seeing here. If I want to make a box culvert liner, I have a box culvert liner shape. So I'm not trying to stick round pipe into a square opening and making that and trying to convince ourselves that that's hydraulically sufficient, right? I can actually line a box with a box. This actually is a what I would call an eccentric reducer. In a sense, you have a larger opening at the inlet and a reducer piece that looks like it slips right into an existing pipe arch. Notice it's completely monolithic. In other words, we can make this all from the same material without having to use any fancy collars or anything. It is all one material and bell and spigot joints, low profile. I just want to kind of highlight some of the things really quick of what we do with this material before I go into project specific stuff. One of the things that we do often is we will dry fit these solutions in the plant. So in other words, when someone goes to put this together in the field, there's no question marks on whether or not this stuff is going to really, excuse me, forgive me here for a second, whether this stuff is going to fit together or not. Everything is labeled, right? So that you see, and I don't know, can you guys see my cursor, Michael?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll actually label everything. So if you've ever built a puzzle before, as long as you can follow a puzzle piece, you can put these liners together. Everything is wonderfully labeled on the outside and the inside of every piece. So you can actually see every single piece that we ship has a label to it. So you really cannot screw it up as long as you follow all the proper panelization. This particular project in Ross Bay is a project that my colleague Andy did up in Canada. And one of the things that he did is they had to do some LiDAR work. This whole thing went underneath a giant cemetery, and they had both vertical and horizontal drops that went through this. So they actually had to map this whole thing out and plan it out with CAD and with a template to make sure it was going to fit through the existing brick sewer. Once they did that, obviously they produced it, dry fit it in the plant. They sent pictures to the contractor, everything was signed off, and that project went swimmingly.
Hey, Don, we got one more question here.
Sure.
So you said, as you say, GRP does not count on the original pipe for strength. Then could it be used by itself? And if so, what is the minimum depth of cover to carry highway loads?
Absolutely, it can. And one of the things about GRP, glass reinforced plastic, is that it is hyper customizable. In a sense, when we design HDPE or corrugated metal or any other type of pipe, you have a chart that you basically pick from, right? If you know your height of cover, you know all your other design variables, you go down through the chart and you say, okay, I need 48 inch. With channel line, with GRP, I could literally make any shape from one day to the next. So you might say, hey, Don, I need something that's 59 by 38. And then the following day you say, I need it to be 59.5 by 38.21 inches. That's the beautiful thing about this solution, is there is no nominal size. So to answer this gentleman's question, yes, you can design it for direct bury. The minimum depth is totally variant on how thick we make that top arch and what shape we're making, right? It's going to change on whether we're making a box culvert, right? You can see this one has a camber in it because it had a pretty thick span, or a pretty thick wall with a wide span. And then we can also make, you know, circular or pipe arches or tunnel liner plates or tunnel liner shapes like you see here. In other words, your min cover is going to vary based off a number of variables. All we need to know is what those design elements are. In other words, what do you have for height of cover underneath your road? What kind of shape are we making? And then I can give you whether or not it's going to meet it. On average, the min cover is about 1 foot to 1.5 feet for mostly all these pipes we're talking about today. Thank you for the question. So this is my colleague, Andy. He is up in New Brunswick, just north of Maine, where I live, believe it or not. And he is underneath Route 1 working for a Triple P partnership in this photo. There is a very similar shape that I'm getting ready to do for southeastern New York here soon. That's 4.5 by 4.5 foot box culvert. But you can see these are all the pieces laying off the side of the highway. And that's that wonderful gentleman standing by his project. Excuse me. We also have the ability, and this is not specific to this project over here, to make curves and radiuses and bends, as we mentioned. I see an individual has a question about min and max lay length of segments and how are they connected. So I will get to that here shortly as we get into some photos, including this one. So min and max lay lengths. Our max lay lengths on GRP are 8 footers. Because we are not making these on mandrels at all, we make them pretty much to any size or shape as we mentioned before. I could make 1 footers, I could make 2 footers, you name it, whatever we need to do, we can make anywhere from 0 to 8 feet long. There are multiple different types of joining mechanisms. In the longitudinal direction, it is for the most part a low profile bell and spigot. And I have some really good photos that I will show you guys here on the Phillips Road project in New York shortly. What you're seeing here is from Everett, Massachusetts, which if you guys aren't familiar is right outside of Boston. And low profile bell and spigot. So in other words, this is the bell side, this is the spigot side, and there's really no extra OD, very minor adder for the OD of that pipe. Circumferentially, you can see when we get into larger spans, now we can make a monolithic section for smaller diameters, but because this sucker was, I think it was 13.5 foot span, we actually did a clamshell design with a tongue and groove. So this was a 2-piece design, and I have some better pictures here on the next slide, but I wanted to show you this tongue and groove. This is before the adhesive, this is after the adhesive, okay? And then this was a box culvert to pipe arch transition that we built for the city of Everett. So as you can see here, believe it or not, this was only 52 feet of pipe, 52 linear feet of pipe. Unfortunately for the city, they have about another 1,000 feet before they reach the outfall to the Atlantic Ocean. That 1,000 feet of existing pipe goes through one of the most logistically nightmare projects I've ever seen in my life, right outside of the Boston Market Terminal. Multiple semi-tractor trucks going in, honking at each other, and they're about to build an Amazon facility with 600 vans going in and out of it. So a really highly populated area. We had suggested to the city that they move forward and try to do a slip liner instead of trying to dig it all out and put a brand new box culvert in, because I just don't see how they're going to do it down through that congested road. Coming back to this particular portion, so you can see, because we're only 1,000 feet from the Atlantic, this excavation pit was about an hour and a half from low tide to high tide before guys had to get back out of there and stop working. As you can see, they cut into the existing 6x2 multi-plate pipe arch and slid these pieces in. So this is actually the entire thing put together, once again, dry fit at our plant. You can see the box culvert. And then the box culvert here, that's this piece, that goes into a brand new precast box that the contractor laid it's actually right on the line of the city of Everett and the city of Chelsea. This thing actually kind of looks like we built it on its face. It was easier to do it that way. And it was panelized, as you can see, multiple sections. It kind of looks like the bottom of a spacecraft. It's that large, a 12 foot tall by 15 foot wide box culvert that transitions into this pipe arch. Okay, so before I move on, there's a handful of questions here I wanted to answer. diameter, height and width. Also, if used for a portion of the tunnel, how are the ends finished and tied to the existing? Okay, so in this instance, and again, this is not made on a mandrel, so we'll make you 10 feet of pipe if you ask for it. We'll make you 1,000 feet of pipe if you ask for it. We're happy to do so. This particular project, once again, brand new. I'm pointing at my screen as if you guys can see me. Over on this end is about 1,500 feet of brand new laid precast box culvert. This is actually going to telescope into, by about 1.5 feet. This will telescope into that brand new precast. And what they did is they built a bulkhead out of high strength brick and mortar between the existing box, or the brand new box, I should say, and this funnel piece that we made them. So basically what you have is a eccentric reducer from that precast box to this piece here. And similarly on the downstream end, they went inside here on the back side of it, and they built a high strength brick and mortar bulkhead. This entire annular space was filled with about a 40-pound low density cellular concrete. And the contractor actually had to run his pumps for a bit longer to make sure that this groundwater didn't interfere with the grouting procedure. Diameters. So our largest diameter to date as a company for GRP is 16 foot. That's 1/6. That project is ongoing. It is for the city of Detroit. It's not my project specifically, but that was actually a 4-piece liner. So again, tongue and groove design. And it is a 16-foot diameter liner going inside of a 17-foot diameter host for a very large sewer line through the center of Detroit. We often we're not usually competitive in smaller diameter circular, right? So this would not be something you'd want to use for like 24-inch slip lining or 30-inch slip lining or anything like that. The kind of the flip on the economical side of things for this particular solution is, number one, most commonly we're looking at non-circular shapes, so box culverts, pipe arches, ovoid shapes for sewers, etc. We usually start around, I would say, a 48-inch non-circular would be the most economical side of things. So for example, if you had a pipe arch that was 71 by 47, that would be a good starting point for us to start talking about GRP as a slip liner. I've done a few smaller pipe arches, but that's really kind of the give or take on the economics there. So there's a lot of things we can do, again, with the different types of joints. We've often panelized these things to go down through existing manholes, right? In an instance where you can't dig an excavation pit and you have to slip line through the existing access ways. I am right now working on a project for an airport here in the Northeast where the particular culvert goes underneath one of the terminals, and they do not want us digging any pits. So we have a 30-inch frame and cover that we have to basically access this thing through. And we are going to take 72-inch circular pipe liner and have it in a quadruple section. So 4 pieces to make the entire circumference. And those sections are designed to go down through the existing 30-inch clear opening on the frame and cover. So that's what we're currently working on for them. So there's a lot of unique things we could do. I mean, we don't have to stop at 4 pieces. If you guys wanted, we could do a 6-piece liner if it really came down to it. So what I would say as far as the customization component of this is, don't hesitate to call myself, Cassie, Michael, with regards to GRP. We can help you come up with different ideas. And there may be something that the 3 of us have seen that you guys haven't seen yet with this glass reinforced plastic for design capabilities. Lifespan. Excuse me while I take a sip here real quick. An individual asked about the lifespan. So all of these products, including the 2 that Michael talked about, we usually say that we start at a 75 to 100 year plus design service life, right? So we will design just like they designed metal back in the day. You have pH, you have corrosivity, you have abrasion rates. All those things are things that we're going to want to know about during the design selection phase. We can do a lot of really unique things with GRP. In other words, if it's a high hydrogen sulfide area where you've got just nasty sewer environment, we may say to you, okay, we're going to make this composite system, this fiberglass composite out of a different inner layer to help you with your high H2S. We are actually working on, for once again, a city very close to me, a vertical structure. This particular vertical structure has been, as we say, for lack of a better word, melted by the hydrogen sulfide. So the engineer herself called it paste, no longer concrete, but paste. And that paste is basically falling away from all the rebar. So the initial plan for them was to apply some sort of spray to attach back onto it. But in order to do that right, you have to scrape away all the paste and get back to something comparable. Instead, we are proposing for her and the owner a brand new vertical GRP pump station vault that is the structure, and then all she has to do is backfill it. Okay, so there is no question mark on how far back do I have to chip this stuff away to get to comparable material. So yes, 100 years plus is what we shoot for, absolutely, to give you a direct answer. And to answer the individual's question about ITD, yes, so Cassie did have to step away for a moment on this presentation, so we may not see that today. I do apologize, folks. We will, she will, or Michael will get a hold of you with regard to that particular project and give you guys some information. Question come through on NSF 61. That is a dang good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I will find out for you. To my knowledge, they do have the ability to utilize this material in NSF 61, and I think they do have a full certification, but do not quote me on that yet. I will take a mental note on that question and get back to you, so thank you for that. All right, these are fantastic questions, folks. Keep them coming. So another project, and again, this is where we're really starting to shine with these non-circular shapes. I say that because this particular owner is a strong believer in culvert and infrastructure rehab. These folks have done a ton of slip lining and relining through a various number of products, including Snap-Tite through the years. They've been a great contact for me. And just do a fantastic job of utilizing the tools in the toolbox. This project, case in point, this project has been known to me for dang near 7 years, I think is the original time I started talking about it with the county. This is out near Rochester, New York. It is quite simply a triple barrel culvert that goes through a major intersection just outside of the Rochester area, the suburbs. So this, as you can see, I wanted to show you guys and gals some photos here of the conditions of the hose pipe. You can see the invert basically was either massive section loss or upturned buckling going on. 7 years ago, when we started talking about it, the owner said, well, can we use like some Snap-Tite and ovalize it? Because we do some ovalized Snap-Tite. In other words, we'll take our circular pipe and we'll press it into an oval shape. That was not sufficient for their hydraulic capacities. So Snap-Tite ovalized did not work for them. They then did their own research on cured in place pipe, and they figured out on their own, without me saying anything, that doing non-circular cured in place is very impossible to do. Especially in a culvert that has structural degradation of this nature. So as soon as, this was one of the first projects, as soon as GRP became known to me, that I brought to the manufacturer and I said, this is a project where we can succeed. This particular culvert, as you can see, had massive, I'm using my cursor again here, folks, massive shape change through not only the invert portion, as you see here in this photo, also in the ceiling portion. So they did their due diligence. They got some LiDAR going through this thing, and we went through about 4 or 5 different iterations on final shape. What you all also notice, I apologize if this is kind of small, there's 2 laterals on this particular barrel here that came in, and I'll show you those here closer in a second. So there's my likeness standing next to those two laterals that are standing up straight on this pallet. And that was in this barrel here. So this very first barrel, they basically dug just a small 5x5 hole in the road, and they were able to slip line the rest of the 120 feet and just plug right into that lateral through that. These two barrels were just straight up slip lining. There was no lateral connections to be had. Now, ironically, even after all the LiDAR and everything, we actually ended up still being a little small, and we could have optimized this invert to have more of a radius to it. The problem was, if I go back, they were very hesitant to clean all this silt out and do anything with this invert, to the point where, you know, by the time it was done, the final invert of the liner was off the floor more than it could have or should have been. But the county is still very, very, very happy with how this whole thing turned out. It is not for lack of anything on the engineer's part or the manufacturer's part. We knocked this one out of the park. They are very satisfied. This was their first experience with glass reinforced plastic, and they will continue to use it. So to the individual's question you asked about lay lengths, you can see these are all the pieces on the job site as delivered, 8-footers. And there's I took this photo kind of looking down across the ceiling of it. There's the spigot side, and there's your bell side. So very, very, very almost non-existent low profile bell and spigot. One thing I haven't mentioned is that we do offer a gasketed connection. Now, the only time I'll do this in a culvert application is when the culvert's too small to crawl in there comfortably. Because normally what we do is we just slip line the pipe. You go in and you actually caulk the joints using a Sikaflex 1A after the fact. So there is no, typically speaking, there is no gasket that we would use. Because this particular thing was only about 29 inches tall, I certainly didn't want to crawl through it. So I said, let's give them some gaskets. They can plug these things all together and avoid any grout leaks through the joints. This particular grouting was done by one of our biggest cellular concrete installers in the country, Mix On Site, and they did a fantastic job. They went in at, I think, about 35 pounds per cubic foot density out of the hose. So the county was satisfied with 100 PSI compressive strength, which is greater than any well-compacted soil would ever be. I love these photos. These were, I had actually left prior to the connections being made. So the county engineer kindly sent me some photos of these being installed. So you can see this is where the small pit was. They plugged in their ADS pipe, and this whole thing is encased in excavatable flowable fill now. And then there's the other one right here. So they basically just cut the ceiling off the existing pipe in that one spot and tied in those laterals. Here's once again, we dry fit these, right? So what's really neat is the customer can see these before they get shipped. So they'll know what this is going to look like when it arrives, including all our fabricated pieces as well. We had for those of you on the call who are in the Northeast, you're familiar with Ida and the couple of rain events we had just a few weeks after Ida. Greater New York, Finger Lakes region of New York, and just above it got hit with some pretty good rain, which was not necessarily detrimental because the contractor they had really flown through a lot of this. So having to deal with a couple of rain event days was not too bad for them. What was good for me is I was out there. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see any pipe go in, but I was out there on one of those days where they were just basically controlling the water, and without making you guys go deaf, I was able to see how this thing looked with flow going through it. So forgive the side tilt action on my camera, but you can see how nice and smooth that barrel. I'll play it for you guys again. And that thing is flowing great now. You can see in this photo, you can see the grout injection tubes. Again, this is just basically a brick and high strength mortar bulkhead that was built between the hose pipe and the liner. And then the annular space was grouted with the low density cellular concrete. Keeler Construction did a fantastic job. So I am all set with my portion. If there's any questions, I would invite you guys. I'm going to go ahead and send to you guys my email address and would invite you to send me any questions or call me. And I would be happy to answer them for you on the GRP, as would Michael and Cassie. I do believe that we have a, did that show up okay, Michael?
I'm not seeing it yet. We got a question for a copy of the presentation as well, which
Okay,
I'm sure we can Google Drive over.
absolutely.
Did
Yeah,
you
if
send
you,
to all or send privately?
I sent to all, but I don't know where it's going to show up. I would say if you guys have any specific questions, go ahead and, oh, so it looks like it's sending, but did it go to the top of the screen? Maybe not.
Here, we'll try this out as well.
Oh, I know why, because it's going in a specific location. I'm going to also try to send or to play a video that Cassie had left for us.
And we did get confirmation about the email and phone.
Wendy says she sees it. Very good.
We got a comment from Wendy saying that she saw the, I think you just answered the question at the top, but it still probably popped on their chat box at the bottom.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, so my email and phone number are in the very top of the question and answer box on the right-hand side, if you guys want to see that. I do have a video link from Cassie, I believe. Let me see if I can find it here. And Michael, if you see it too, feel free to go ahead and play it. Oh, here it is. All right, folks, so bear with me one second. I'm going to try to let me go ahead and I'm going to mute my audio for a second and play through the ad, and then bear with me for 20 more seconds. I'll be right. Michael, can you see that all right?
Yep, got it.
Okay, here we go. I apologize if it's grainy. We're going to give this a whirl. Okay, folks, so you guys could see in there, you saw some snap type being put in. And what I would tell you is that you saw their own equipment being utilized. Cassie and crew are on site. We are constantly showing folks, Michael is always out on the road, myself as well, introducing to folks how to self-perform these installs. So oftentimes, if you have an engineer that can go ahead and specify a material and or likely equivalent, Michael and I will come out, help you, show you what diameter we think would fit, what works for your hydraulics. All of these things are fully structural again, so that's kind of an automatic checkbox. And then what we would invite you to do is just have us out to do a site visit, and we can help you with the spec and show you how to put it in if you have a crew. So once again, the same thing can be said for the GRP, the glass reinforced plastic. These are self-performing type items, or if you have a contractor you like to work with, we can be very flexible in how we work with you folks. So I don't see any other questions. Michael, did we miss any?
I think we're good. We got a couple people we got to follow up with, but we'll do that via email and phone separately, I guess.
Fantastic. I want to take this opportunity to once again thank everyone. I see some familiar names on here. I know Michael and Cassie did as well. You guys are great. I appreciate the questions. I know I have one to follow up on. So please, by all means, get the word out there, get our name out there, share with folks that this was worth your time and effort, and we look forward to having you guys. If you do need a PDH, that was offered to my particular group with all those except for New York State PI for now. This presentation and the second one that I'm offering on December 10th will eventually be worth a PI certified PDH, but we can get generic PDH for this particular presentation if you are not looking for a New York State PI certified presentation PDH. All right, folks, without further ado, have a wonderful week. Michael, thanks for doing an excellent job.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. Have a good day, folks.